I'm Device from Australia, and welcome to Thorin's YouTube channel. It's a joke-free zone.
Right, when the move to Valorant came, what I want to know is what preceded it. Like, for example, if people don't know, already most of the last year, people were already on the side playing Valorant. Funny enough, for fun, because everyone was trapped in their houses. Like, the beta obviously came off, like, if people don't remember, that it came out around the time Flashpoint 1 was, if you remember, like, roughly the spring of 2020. So you left in, like, the beginning of 2021, the year later. Had you already played Valorant on the side a bunch? Was it a game you just dabbled in, or were you ever thinking, like, you know, maybe I'll keep it on the side in case this is an option?
No, I played the beta when it first came out. I grinded it a bit. I think everyone did.
Yes.
But I played the beta and kind of just like stopped playing. And then, and yeah, I guess before the move, I had a conversation with, well, I was talking to a lot of CS teams, first off. Some of them were in Europe. And I was really entertaining those offers. I was very close to moving to Europe, like very, very close to join a team. And then on top, that didn't really work out because the IGL I wanted to play with went to a different team. I mean, if you look back at the time and you look at the roster moves, you can kind of put together what I'm.
Is there a reason it has to be secret? Like, is that why do you keep it 2 years later? Does anyone care now? It's like 2 years later. Who cares? Surely 3 years later we could say who it is.
I mean, I guess
it's not
that's
top
true.
secret, is it?
I don't know. I just always feel weird, like, you know, naming out offers, but I guess it doesn't matter at this point. I mean, I was talking to MOUZ, and I was going to join MOUZ, and at the time, it was going to be Kerrigan, Rops, Froze, or did Rops leave? I don't know if Rops
Maybe you
left
instead of WackSick, because I think WackSick got benched or something.
Yeah,
Maybe you instead of WackSick?
Yeah, it was me instead of WackSick. I was going to come in as the offer. I was going to play with Kerrigan.
Right.
And I was going to move my whole life to Germany. And I was going to move my girlfriend with me. We were going to do it right. And I was committed to it. And then Kerrigan goes to FaZe.
All right.
He's like the big reason why I wanted to join the team. And so it falls through. Then as well, there was I was talking to some other teams, but I was looking at this lineup with Flusha. I think that was pretty public. I was talking to Flusha, Sunny. We were going to bring in 2 other guys.
The one that they ended up making a squad in the end, right? Okay, so you were going to be part of that one, right?
Yeah, I was talking to them, and Flusha was someone that I really wanted to play with because I wanted to kind of keep learning from him.
Sure.
But honestly, what happened? Like, I can't really put it into words, but it just didn't feel right. Like, for some reason, it didn't feel right, and I didn't want to move my whole life, go to Europe, for something that I had doubts about. You know, because like I said, I'm someone that is down to go down with the ship, but it's going to be hard to get me on the ship in the first place.
Sure, right. I see.
Yeah, so I didn't feel right about it, so I backed out of it. And then from there, I was just going to stream, but then DaZe wanted to have a call with me. He had a call with me. He kind of gave me his pitch on why Valorant is a great game, his strategy for how he's going to get the team. His team good in 6 months. And he was very detailed, very in depth. He could explain everything in CS terms, so I could understand. And after that, I left the call thinking maybe Valorant's an option, but not for anyone, only for DaZe, only to join T1.
Right.
And so I was kind of lingering on that while I was streaming, and then my sports psychologist, who I'd worked with my whole entire career from Cloud9, he ended up becoming T1's coach. I had referred him to DaZe, and I said, it might be a good coach for you, since you seem to have all the in-game stuff figured out. He could take care of the out-of-game stuff. And he ended up getting the job as the T1's coach.
Oh, was this the Korean guy, Autumn? Is this who we're talking about? No, who was this you talk about?
David Denis.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's like a Canadian guy, something, right?
Canadian guy, yeah.
Right, okay.
So he ended up being the coach, and he got me on a call, and he just asked me straight up, "Do you want to join T1 Valorant?" And I said, "Fuck it, let's do it." And then at that point, I had barely played any Valorant. I don't think I had touched it really, and I joined the team. I committed verbally before even playing any Valorant.
Okay. By the way, is it?
And-
This is one thing I would ask, because I know a lot of actually back then the CS:GO pros. A lot of people have a story like yours. They weren't even playing the game and they got like a contract offer. Is it like a mad ego boost when someone basically says, like, "Here's a contract to play a game you don't even play right now"? It's kind of says they think you're just super sick at games, mate. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to what I was saying about like I don't even know if I would like the game.
Right.
I don't even know if I like the 3 other members on the team, if I like the org. I don't even know any of that stuff at this point.
Right.
But I know Dazed and I know David, the coach.
What was the allure of playing with Daze? Like, what made you so interested in playing with him?
Just how detailed he was. He was so detailed. He had a plan of action, and he was a long-term thinker. Like he had a plan for 6 months into the season where we would be at, how good we would be, and how we would progress from there. He had a general strategy for how we're going to build out the playbook. He had very nowadays they might be standard philosophies about how to play the game, but back then I don't think teams were thinking along these lines, especially in Valorant, because a lot of the players were kind of, they weren't tier 1 CS players. So
I mean, some of them weren't even CS players at all, so I'm sure a lot of the concepts were not even grasped, right?
Yeah, and he also, like I said, he could explain it to me in CS terms.
Right.
So that's a huge thing when I'm learning a game. Can they communicate these complex ideas to me in a way that I can understand and in a way that I can learn? So that was kind of what I liked about it. And if people don't know, or people might not know this, but his teams in CS were always well-oiled machines, like almost to a fault. Like a lot of people would say, I mean, even he would say this maybe. Actually, he did say it in your Reflections video with him. He said that was the fault of his team. He wished that he would have played a little bit less by the book.
Right.
But that was honestly the appeal when it came to playing with him.
Because if people don't know, like I said, that's actually what I remember hearing at the time, like he doesn't even play the game, which is like, what? So the funny thing is, at the time, people just assume, what, do you really hate CS? Or in this scenario, you actually had someone to go and play with, right? When you went to this team, one thing that people are probably surprised by is, because the team you joined was T1, right? In CS, people don't know this team, obviously, because they weren't like a Counter-Strike team. This is the team, literally the one that you've just heard about in League of Legends that just won the World Championship against Faker's team, if people don't know. And before that, it's like Boxers in Korea. Like, there's actually a legendary organization in esports. Like, even though I know with this particular lineup, they did this like NA lineup for a while, and then eventually they did the inevitable swap for VCT. They just went like a Korean approach, obviously, and did like a team kind of in their natural wheelhouse. It's also, I would imagine, kind of exciting, because the premise is, if this really kicks off, this is a giant org we're in, actually. Like, this could be like a big deal, this project, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely really exciting. T1, I had played a bit of League in high school, and
I'm sure everyone has in that where you're from, right? Come on.
Yeah, so I was well aware of how big T1 was, and so I was really excited to play with them. I was excited to have T1 next to my name. A lot of the orgs that I've been a part of, actually, I've always been excited to have their tag next to my name. Like, I played on some really good orgs, know, TSM, C9, EG, Gen G. So yeah, I was really excited for that as well. So yeah, I mean, it all just kind of, like, similarly to how I backed out of the Flesh Up project because something didn't feel right, this felt right to me. So I just went with it. And yeah, it was a really fun time going to Valorant. A lot of people think that, I didn't like CS, or I went there for the money. If I wanted money, I would have stayed in CS. That's honestly what people don't understand. Like, the people that went there for the money were the tier 2 players.
The washed players, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
they hadn't made it yet,
job.
exactly, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, it makes sense for them to go there and, like, people to come up with that conclusion. But I could have gone paid, and I would have gotten paid more in CS than in Valorant. I took a pay cut when I left. So it wasn't like, it's never been about the money. I was in it before the money. I'll be in when, so yeah, I just went because it felt right. I went because I knew the people, I knew who I was getting into business with, and I was just excited for the project.
Right, people have obviously gotten the theme from this interview that part of your career has been finding challenges and things to get you motivated and drive and things to sink your teeth into. Was Valorant actually like a breath of fresh air in this sense? Was it what you hoped it would be?
It was. I enjoyed Valorant so much. like I enjoy it now. Like I'm playing right now, I'm horrible. I'm nowhere near a pro level, but it's so fun. It's fun to be bad. Like it's really fun to be bad because you get better so quick, you know? And that's I think on every team, I always try to find something like that I'm working on, a challenge that I'm working on. And T1 gave me like so many challenges. It was like, you know, I have to learn this new game, I have to learn this new system, I have to like play with these new players I've never played with, and there was every day was like I was every day I had something that I could really tackle, and yeah, it was a fun time, and yeah.
Right, one thing I have to ask you about, and like normally what I do in these interviews is if someone had a long Valorant career, like they played for 2 years, I just split it up and then I assume, right, the Valorant part will be watched by Valorant fans and the CS part will be watched by... Because your career wasn't that long in Valorant, we'll just make it all one and we just won't go like too insane for the CS people. So we'll make it more like a bit of it will be educational. So here's the question I want to ask immediately, Autimatic. Right, one of the areas where if people heard from the beginning of Valorant, or maybe they played the beta, like, oh, it's basically just CS with like anime stuff and some abilities. It's like that was only like the first 6 months, guys. Like the game after that, I always tell people, like the cool thing is it has like elements of CS. Like obviously the guns are like CS and trade fragging concepts are like plant the bomb. But aside from that, it's actually more like a mobile like League. Like it's got the comp, and then obviously like depending on what role you play, like classes, if you think about that way, guys, then you have a different character that you play, and the characters are all totally different. Whereas obviously in Counter-Strike, we're all the same guy, right? I can pick up an AWP the same way you can pick up an AWP. We have the same abilities. So if people don't know, in that game specifically, like in League of Legends, it's not like in CS where there's 5 players. It's like, you know, in one round, maybe I'm the lurker this round, maybe the next round I'm the entry, maybe after that I'm the fucking, I don't know, the AWP. I could do anything in CS, right? I could change it in the moment. In this game, obviously, you're committing to a role. You're playing a specific type of class. And this is the part I feel like the CS fans, if they didn't follow the game, this is where you lost already, because to you don't know what these roles are. So early on, I notice if I look at the characters you're playing at the beginning, you're playing like the fucking controllers, like the sentinels, like, and then later you become the duelist, which is more what people think of you from CS, like just a skilled player who gets to be the star and stuff. When you began the game, like what was the vision of how you were going to play, and how were you fitting into the squad? Because I've heard all these roles, like these, if you're not just the duelist shooting people, I've heard these are the ones that take a bit of time to figure out, like how do they even play in this game? What's different about CS, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think any CS player can be a controller. Like that's a very like linear transition. If people don't know, controller is just the person that has smokes. Like they smoke for, you know, you smoke for your teammates, smoke for yourself. And the idea was to put me in an easy role so that I can, like, I don't have too much to think about and I could just, you know, play the game. And I remember actually having some conversations with the coach saying like, man, like I don't want an easy role. Like you put me on this easy role. That's like, that's not me, you know, like I mean, you know me from all these years of working together. Like this is not what I switched for. You know, I didn't switch to just play some easy role and, you know, just like fit in. I switched to be a good player. And so, you know, it took some time, but we eventually started experimenting more with my roles. I played Sentinel, was okay at it. But then when I actually, it was unfortunate because we had a player on the team who goes by Sayaplayer, who's really, really skilled mechanically, super skilled. And he was our duelist. And then he got injured. So once he got injured, now the duelist role was open. So that was my kind of opportunity to take over. And so I got the opportunity to play duelist. So I was playing duelist, and I think that the reason why I excelled at duelist is because on defense, for one, I was playing with the op, and I think that I was a really skilled opper. At this moment, like in this moment in time, I was thinking everything that I learned from my time on Gen G when it comes to opping, but also when it comes to the mental game that goes on, like I'm going to put it to use. That's what I thought at this very moment. And I felt like I did that. Like I felt like as an op, I was really oppressive. I was like really cold with the way, like you'll see clips of me missing a ton of shots. Doesn't matter. Like I'm still taking my shots and I'm going to hit the next one. And so all these things, like yeah, I think it was just perfect because I got to use everything that I learned. And then there's a character named Raze who like has grenades, and she's one of the best characters in my opinion. And at that time, she was like really overpowered in my opinion. But that was like great because you never have to take a fair gunfight. Every gunfight you take, you can have an advantage as long as you can utilize the kit really well.
Right.
So the cool thing about Valorant is that you can be a specialist. Like you pick up an agent or like a role and you can dive so deep within this role because that's all you will be doing.
Yes.
In CS, it pays dividends to kind of know how to play certain roles and like it helps a lot if you can adapt around your teammates and kind of do a little bit of everything because
Be well-rounded,
because everyone can literally do everything, right?
Yes.
But in Valorant, you can dive really, really deep into certain roles, and so I like that so much. And so, yeah, like that, all the things I said on top of you're the main space creator or space taker, so you're taking a lot of map control. Once you have the map control, like for me, I can tell the teams what I want to do with it. And I think that's why it just kind of like worked out better for me and why I played better is because I had more space on the team. I could really impact the game.
I actually wanted to ask about Sayaplayer. If people don't know about it, he actually changed his name now. He's called Spyder now. But because I used to follow, because my mate Monte Cristo worked there, I've used to follow the Overwatch League when he played in it. And if people don't know, like, this is where you know in Counter-Strike, Koreans never really tried to play the game properly. They barely play the game, guys. Because anyone who thinks, like, oh, Koreans don't really play FPS, you've never seen them in, like, Overwatch boys. Like, they're cracked out of their minds. Like this guy, for example, essentially the weapon, he was basically the Widowmaker, which is just the AWPer in Overwatch, if people don't know. And all I'll tell you is this guy's mechanics are really fucking good, right? Like this guy, I could imagine if he actually did play Counter-Strike, dude, he'd be amazing. He'd be a sick AWPer, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, Saya was so good. He was like, you have people that are really snappy, kind of like Shroud, and then you have people that are just really clean. And he was really, really clean mechanically. He was also like really cold. Like never, I don't know like what was going on mentally with him. But that's my point, is like he just played and performed.
Right, didn't matter, okay.
And yeah, and he was just so good. And on top of that, there was a language barrier, but he was able to learn a lot despite the language barrier. And I mean his communication was also good. He was always trying to improve his communication. He would always say like, "Oh, my English is so bad," but it's like no, he was improving every day, and so just super skilled player. I'm really like on top of that, just like a brother. Like seriously, it was me and him living in this apartment complex, and I felt like he was the closest guy I had on the team. Because we would just go to lunch or go to dinner. We would hang out, and yeah, he was a great teammate to have.
Right, one thing I would like to know, because obviously I'm sure Counter-Strike fans will be interested is, right, this might shock them, but Skadoodle was your teammate, but he's nothing like Skadoodle from CS. He's not like the AWPer, he's not the guy player. What was his role in this team? It was quite interesting.
So, yeah, it was hard because obviously I mentioned that I was opping in Valorant, but the character that ops is Jett, and she's kind of dynamic in the way that you could be an opper and you can be an entry. Like you're both. And I think Ska was really good at opping, but the entering part was a little bit
right.
Like that wasn't his specialty. And also like some of the situations you get in as Jett where you take space and then you leave a guy there to lurk, that's obviously my specialty. Like that's something that I was really good at. And so I think there were more, and I mean, it's not like let's say that he was a better opper than me. It's not like I'm bad with the op, like I can still op. He just might be a little bit better than me. But the other areas that you should have as a Jett player, I think I was, more experienced in. And so that's like why he didn't play Jett. Now the role that he ended up playing was he was an initiator, which is kind of like you're supporting the team. He's basically supporting me He's setting kind of the pace of the map control.
By the way, just for a casual fan, the confusing thing if you're from CS is when they say the word initiate, you're going to think that means entry, but it's actually the other way around. You help the other people entry, right? It's
Yes,
confusing as
exactly.
a name, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he was really good at that because in CS, I think the part that he could have improved on was that he could have been more vocal, but I mean that's always been
Sure.
so I'm not really too like pressed about that. But in CS, he was a supportive opper. I know that sounds like kind of crazy because like people think oppers are supposed to be star of the team,
Sure.
supposed to be selfish, but every op needs to support. It's just how the game works. Like there are rounds where you don't because you're doing something aggressive, but most of the rounds you're supporting your teammate. You're helping your team get map control, and then you get into a post plant or you get into a winnable situation and you close out the round. That's how the op kind of works. And that's how he played the op. So he was doing that just without the op. He was supporting, getting into late round scenarios, getting into post plants, getting into winnable situations, and then from there he just does him. And that was kind of the role that he played.
What about obviously, if people don't know, I've tried to stay more on like players they know what the game was like because the problem is there just wasn't any really big results. Like if people don't know the way it works, it is also because it's a Riot game. It's more like how the League of Legends circuit works than the Counter-Strike circuit. Like basically, the analogy would be: imagine if in Counter-Strike the only way like a Swedish team could play an American team would be at the major. There's no tournaments aside from that. They all just play in Sweden and America. You basically play in your region, and it's only if you're the top X team that you get to go to the international tournament. And your problem was your team was always in the mix right until like the playoffs, and they just lose early in the playoffs and never get to go to the LANs. Like that part has to be hard again because, as I say, like one of the stupid things is, in theory, Valorant actually had the LANs back before Counter-Strike, but you just never qualified for any of them. What was the frustrations in this regard? How did you keep going?
I think, I didn't know that this was going to happen, but DaZe kind of had already set the expectation. I just didn't listen to it, He said he's planning on being good in 6 months. I'm just looking at the dates right now just because I forget.
Dude, that's almost the amount of time you were in the game is the joke, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you were there until the summer or something, yeah.
Yeah. He got cut after 4 months, right?
Right.
So we were, and every time we made it to, I think semis or quarters or something like that, and we always lost. It was double elim, and we always lost to the top two teams. Every team was first and second out of that qualifier, and like it's not like an excuse for losing because obviously we should be better. You have to beat everyone if you want to make it through, right? But the main point is that we were close. And he set the expectation of 6 months. We were at 4. Had we kept going with the roster, who knows what would have happened. That's something that I hate, is that
the what if.
We set out on this project, we committed to it together. Like, do people think that, you just put a name or a roster with good names on it and then the roster just becomes good? That's not how it works. I've been using.
I feel like even more in Valorant, dude. Like I feel like if you don't like in CS, maybe people can pog a bit. Like as we're talking about, the game's just so complex compared to CS. I don't think you can just walk in and be good the first day. Surely not.
No, it's really hard. And on top of that, one thing that I wish I would have done differently if I could have, is I wish I would have played a little bit more before joining the team.
Oh, sure.
I think I got like 2 weeks or 1 week to play before we had to compete in the first qualifier, and we lost in the open qualifier. And it's really hard because I'm someone where like if you have me on a team, you will get input from me. Like I will be giving you feedback on the game, and at the same time though, I will be trying to help you achieve your vision, right? So DaZe has this vision of how he wants to play the game. I can help with that, but not when I'm new to the game. It's like I don't know anything. So I wish that I could have been a little bit more used to the game so that I could have helped him kind of achieve his vision and give him feedback when it was needed. And I think we would have won faster, but given the scenario that we were in, I mean, look, we almost beat Sentinels And Sick had like
They were like the best team in the
35
world.
kills.
If people don't know at the time, they were like the absolute
Yeah.
best team, right?
At the time, they were the #1 team. They went on to win like basically the tournament that you qualify for is Masters, and they won that, and they beat us. They beat us to qualify for it, and you know, it was 2-1, and the last map we literally like Sick had an amazing performance. He dropped like 30 on us, which in MR12 is like that's a lot.
Crazy,
That's a lot of kills. So yeah, I mean, I just think that we didn't give it enough time. People lost faith in the vision.
Was it the players or the org that kicked theirs?
You know, it's hard to say because no one will ever like admit if they wanted someone cut.
Right,
you know, because
sure.
everything is kind of happening behind closed doors.
Secret DMs and stuff, yeah, of course.
Yeah. No, so after, you know, the fact, when you see, oh, the team is in shambles, we have no IGL, people will all say like, oh, I wish Daze was on the team.
Right.
But I don't, so the answer is I don't know, but I wanted him on the team.
Right.
He's the reason why I played Valorant to begin with, right? So obviously I'm not going to turn on him. But yeah, I think we just lost faith in the process. We didn't give it the process enough time. And yeah, I think we would have been good, but obviously no way to tell.
Right, obviously, even though it's sad that Daze went out, you actually got to play with Swag. If people don't know, Brax, as he's called, came in and he was playing. And obviously, in that game, I mean, technically now he's unbanned anyway, but you know, like in that game, he was unbanned. He could just play properly. Right, what was it like to play with him?
It was good. I mean, I think Brax is someone that, like, if you watch him, his main strength is just all the micro situations. He'll play every fight so well. He'll play his life so well. He won't ever give up an easy kill, but he'll also punish you if you try to do something stupid. So he was just like a really solid player to have on the team. I think that on attack side, or like T side, I think that's probably where like it was a little bit more difficult because if people don't know, like Brax is kind of a passive player on T side. Sometimes you have to take a risk. But in general, it was like really nice to play with him and just watch how he would approach these small, like micro situations. And on top of that, he was just winning every clutch, like every single clutch. Like I would message him, yo, how did you win that 1v1? You know, like what were you thinking at this time? And then he would always just say, I don't know. I just kind of felt like this was what I had to do. And I was like, all right, thanks, man.
Exactly what you don't want to hear. Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's like, I can't really do anything with that.
Sure. By the way, is that something you've done in general in your career? It sounds like in general you're kind of like a sponge for your teammates. So if you think someone can give you value, you use them as a resource, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think every player in like that I've played with has been better than me at something. You know, like I'm not better than everyone at everything. Like even when I played with TenZ, you know, like TenZ, he didn't have the experience, he didn't have the game knowledge, he didn't have any of that. But I remember looking at his mechanics and the way that he trained his mechanics, and I remember thinking to myself, he understands this way better than me. And I remember trying to pick his brain about how he would approach different shots, you know, like because there's a technique in the game of how you hit shots. And I would ask him all these questions. And I remember like Mixwell was he knew it too. You know, he knew like this guy knows something that we don't when it comes to mechanics.
Right.
And so yeah, I feel like I've always tried to kind of see what people are good at and see if I can steal it from them.
Along those lines, if people don't know, as much as people, because they maybe CS fans looked at like the Liquipedias for some of these tournaments and saw, oh, it's all just like washed CS pros plus Ethan and Automatic and Daps. Like the joke was that's what everyone thought. They were like, oh, it's an easy game, Valorant children's game. What they don't know is this, mate. When I look at some of those players, like the obvious one is TenZ. Some of these guys, if they came back to CS, like, look, the game's different, but his mechanics are fucking sick. Like, I'm pretty sure if this guy actually tried to go pro in CS2, he could be a top fucking NA player. At times he looked really good in Valorant, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, like, a lot of these players, like, when I say that, you know, earlier I said that they were just tier 2 players, it's not to say that they couldn't have been tier 1. It's just that they didn't get their shot yet, you know? Like, it's one, like, you see this so much. A tier 2 player who's really good, they get their shot, and then it most of the time doesn't work out the first time. Like, most of the time. there's a transition period, and a lot of times these tier 2 players that are completely destroying, they have these all-star positions. Their team is set up around them. When you play with better players, you're not going to get everything you want.
Yes.
Like there's going to have to be some compromise, and that takes adjusting. You know what I mean? And I think that with TenZ specifically, like he just needed more time. Like I think most tier 2 players, they need more time. They need better situations to thrive in. And the players that there are just very few players that can just make the leap from tier 2 to tier 1 and then have it be seamless. Like Stu is one of those guys that could do it, but not everyone can do it that way.
The other thing also that was quite silly about the way that the circuit operates like this, if you don't make it to the lands, is it's a similar problem people have in League as well. If you don't make it to Worlds, your season just ends really early. Just sat home for like 4 months, like, what the fuck? What am I supposed to do? And then the stupid thing is, in theory, you're supposed to grind the game because you're supposed to think, right, who's going to pick me up in the off-season, or are we going to add players to our team? Right? When the season, the joke is, if people don't know, autimatic came over to VALORANT in something like February, and then by like July, his season was done. It was over. Like, he hadn't qualified to the champions and the VCT and stuff, right? When it was over like that, did you know already that like maybe VALORANT is over? Were you still waiting, thinking like, well, maybe they'll do a different version of T1, or maybe I'll join another team? Were you still thinking you would play VALORANT?
At the time, I was just kind of seeing what was available. I was grinding the game a lot. At this point, I was like streaming and I was trying to learn new roles just for fun. And yeah, I was just seeing what offers came to the table, and there were a lot of VALORANT teams looking at me. And there was only one CS team that was looking at me, and that was EG. And so I just kind of had calls with everyone to see kind of what I like, and following the theme of, wanting to work with people I know, the person that approached me from EG was Valence. And he wasn't even a part of CS at the time. He was doing data science, but he was asking me, are you interested in coming back?
Right.
Like, do you and I was like, I'll talk to whoever you have as your coach, and let's, and I'll see. And he had Malik, and I had a call with Malik, and I think our call lasted like 5 hours, something like that. We went through everything. We went through, what I think I can bring, my history, kind of like what we're doing now, and just tried to get a really good feel for everything. I also, saw how he operated, all the things that he could bring to a team, how they did things on G2, and I was blown away. I was like, man, this is gonna be sick. Like, he has all the. It was very similar to my conversation with Days. After I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be good. And then on top of that, you bring in Stu, who obviously I have a lot of good things to say about Stu. You bring in Rush, who I also have a lot of good things to say about Rush. And Cirque, I know Cirque and Breeze at this point, they were at a down period. But, like, look at the situations that they were in. You know what I mean? Their roster was, like, the stability of their roster is horrible.
Oh, of course.
And so, again, this might be copium, and I might be giving them so many outs, or maybe they don't. But this is what's going on in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I was like, yeah, I mean, let's do it. Let's fucking, and I got Soam in the back office or front office or whatever, and so I just felt like, yeah, this could be a really good team. On paper, it's a really good team. So with that in mind, I just like cut off all the offers from VALORANT. I said, I'm not going to play anymore. I'm just going to commit to CS, and I committed to CS.
Right, when you came back, obviously people will know. By the way, on this Evil Geniuses section, I'm going to use kid gloves because let's just say if you don't know how the American corporate system works, we can't always just say everything in when we're not on teams. Maybe that has to be, maybe in 10 years we do Reflections Part 2 and then all the cool stories are there. I have to put it that way. So I'm going to leave some of these questions open-ended, and it's up to autimatic. He'll figure out how he wants to answer them. So one thing I will ask is this. I do have one mild drama question, and it's just about the beginning of this team, that story with Malik coming in, and then, because basically, if people don't know, this is the main reason why everyone hates on Stewie 2K now. When they heard this story, unfortunately for him, they didn't like his version of it, and the version of Malik and the others have sort of like made him sound like a diva. And unfortunately, people rode with that, especially because obviously his individual game wasn't so good. And if you notice, if you're a good player, people want to believe you're a great guy, and if you play bad, they think you're a piece of shit. That's just how Counter-Strike works, and probably sports, if we're being honest. So the problem is that everyone heard this story where Malik joins, and then like supposedly the story is that Stewie, he was like, "Hey, can we get a cup of coffee, Stewie?" And then people make it sound like Stewie was like, "Fuck you," and then just like didn't acknowledge him. Now, here's what's weird about that is that's not really the Stewie 2K I've met before, Mike. Like, actually, if people don't know, even though online people know the whole like he has like quite a braggadocious sort of persona and shit talk and stuff. Actually, in person, he can be quite a polite person. Sometimes quite a shy guy. So, in fact, the funny thing is, like you're saying earlier, I actually had the perception if someone's the right sort of coach, he might like to vibe with them and pick apart the game and talk about it. Do you think, was he in a bad place in his life or something? What was your take on this part of the story? Because that's the part that seems so weird is I get the vibe all these players did want Stewie in the team and they did want this project to work and you do want to play together. So like, why did it have to start so badly, do you think?
I think that Stu and Malik should have done what I'm doing now, which is taking a break after a really strenuous grind with the team.
Right.
Like, because, you know, I feel like they both were on, you know, G2 and Liquid for, I don't even know how long. I think, like, Malik was on G2 for, like, a long time.
Yeah,
like
a few years at least,
yeah. Yeah, and then Stu was on Liquid for 2 years, and they obviously had a lot of highs, and then they were on a down period. And I think that it would have been very beneficial for them to just take a break before coming into this new project. Because I think that at least my reasoning is because I feel like when you come out of a project and, you know, this grind, you just bring so much of unnecessary stuff into a new, like what's supposed to be a fresh start, you know?
Right.
You bring a lot of baggage. You bring a lot of like, oh yeah, I don't want to do it like that because when, you know, on our old team with this player, it's like that player's not on your team.
Yes.
That, you know, like doesn't like you're on a new team now. You got to figure out what's going to work here. And yeah, I just feel like it was a lot of that coming from both ends. And so I just felt like that is probably the biggest reason why it didn't work out, was just like not really trying to start this team fresh. It was like almost trying to pick up where they left off at Liquid or pick up where they left off at G2. And obviously that's going to clash if you have a player from Liquid and a coach from G2. You see what I'm saying? And I think that is the biggest reason why it didn't work out.
Right, one thing I want to ask is this. We'll do two ways on this one. So obviously the one sort of high, I mean, technically, by the way, qualified to a majors high. That's good, okay, there's that one. But then the other one obviously was that famous win over Heroic at the beginning of last year where you got, here's the thing, as much as it became a meme because of all the stupid shit on Twitter, like at the end of the day, on LAN, to beat the number one team in the world in a best of three, that's exactly what you're dreaming of. That's what you want to, if you hope, you know, you come back to the next season and it all goes well. Just give me some thoughts on that. Like, as much as people meme, you did win the game at the end of the day. Not many, at that point in time, Mike, actually the famous thing about Heroic was they pretty much didn't lose to bad teams. They like only used to lose in the final or to like, you know, the absolute best squad. So I actually thought this was a good win. What did you think of that?
I don't even know what to say about that win, honestly. I think let me just look up the match because I
think it was where you won each other's maps or something stupid like that, if I remember.
Yeah, I just know that we beat them on Overpass on the last map. I mean, it's like, obviously we're not delusional, you know, like we didn't think that because we won against the number one team at the time, especially after a break. I'm pretty sure this was right after.
It was like the first game of the season, yes.
Yeah. Like, it's not like we're on our high horse thinking like, oh, dude,
right,
this is going to be sick. We're going to freaking own them, you know? But it's more about just taking away, like, what did we do well? You know,
yes.
like how do we, like, obviously this result we can't replicate it consistently right now, but how do we work towards replicating it, you know, 3 months, 4 months, whatever, down the line? And I think that's kind of the approach that we took. The approach that, that was taken on Twitter was a little bit different.
Sure.
But yeah, and I mean these matches were in really close fashion. Like, okay, now I remember. Yeah, we lost on Inferno, which was our pick. And the thing about, we played Ancient the second map, and on Ancient we had barely practiced the map. Like it was literally one of our, so like when you win on a map that you've barely practiced, that you kind of just like free ball, like, can you really say that it's like a good map for you?
Sure.
Like you kind of just got lucky on it.
Sure.
In a way. So, obviously you win it, and then it's about what worked, what went well for us, and you kind of have to take those things out of it. But to get the result in the first place was kind of, it was like, we didn't know that we were gonna win. We didn't know that we were good on it. We just fucking played and it worked out. And then on Overpass is a map that I will say that, like, I was really prepared for them on Overpass.
Seems like in your career, it's just a good map for you, mate. You vibe with this map for some reason, right?
Yeah, it's been a good map for me. I watched their games before. I knew how they like to play the map. I had some small tells. Like, there was one round where, if you look at the last round, it happened twice, actually, throughout the match, I'm pretty sure. But they didn't put out, like, the stairs molly. You know how you molly stairs as a CT? They didn't put it out. And I had been looking on prep, and Shush has this play where, like, he runs out long right away. And every time he runs out long, they don't put out the smoke.
That's the tell, right?
They don't put out the molly. So I remember the last round. I mean, it happened one other round, but the last round, I was, like, listening, and I didn't hear them put out the molly. And I said, they didn't put out the molly. They normally rush, and then I just kill them rushing out long. And then it's like, so, basically, I'm just saying that, like, I was really comfortable on the map, and on top of that, I had good prep that I did. And on top of that, the whole team, once you have a player that's really comfortable on the map, the whole team gets a little bit more comfortable, because the whole team has a pillar of stability that they can lean on. So I think that was just like what happened there. I mean, they ended up destroying us the next time we played them because heroic. One thing about Cadian that is really cool is he does not take you lightly. Like the game after, they completely obliterated us, and they built on their loss. That's one.
Oh, you could tell they like studied it and like figured out all the shit you did and stuff.
Yeah, well, at least that's what it felt like.
Right.
I felt like we were on the back foot the whole game.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happened on that map, and it wasn't long lived, but it was good to have one good map, I guess.
Right, being as you've pointed out about both Valorant and CS, obviously the game isn't just people fragging and, if you're a good team, you're skilled, and if you're a bad team, you're shit. Like, people will know in this team, obviously, you can look up the stats, people had problems and people's form wasn't as good as past years, or maybe their names. But there's obviously more to a team than just shooting people with the crosshair. Were there other things? Because you said quite an interesting thing earlier, that to you, even EG, if it had extra maybe runway, could have fixed some of the problems. What were the things like inside the team that didn't click? Or was there some a level you could never get to, or something that was kind of a problem for the team, do you think?
Well, there were a lot of iterations of the team. I would consider 4 iterations of the team.
Do you think that was a mistake, by the way, to keep changing players?
Maybe not the first time, but after that, yes. The first time, it was just, like I said, like, too much of unnecessary, like, stuff coming into a new team. I think probably a change needed to be done there. I don't think we could have, like, continued without people taking some time for themselves. But after that, with Cirque, when the roster was me, neaLaN, Cirque, Breeze, and Hex, I think that was a pretty good lineup. Like, we got to top 20. We had some good results. They weren't great. It's not like I think we beat Movistar and, like,
Eternal Fire and that, yeah.
Eternal Fire, yeah. And we had some close matches and things like that. And we weren't bad. Like, we were, it was a decent starting point, I would say. If people expect us to make a team like that, change the IGL, and then all of a sudden be like top 15, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless you have a core, which I guess we did have, but, like, when you look at Cirque and Breeze as profiles on a team, they're not people that are like that. They're not going to control the team too much.
They're pretty quiet players if people don't know, right?
Yeah.
They kind of just play the game, right?
So they don't influence the team as much. So it's hard to consider them part of a core,
right?
You know, but but regardless, we were pretty good. I would say, like, I was happy with the starting point.
Okay.
If you look at that team on paper versus the team that we had the previous season, right? We instantly were better. And yeah, I think. What was the question? The question was what went wrong?
Yeah.
I mean, I think what went wrong was just when we cut Cirque. I think despite what people say about his performance and his like form at the time, he brought that element of like we're joining, like for neaLaN and JaCkz, he probably brought that element of like, oh, we're joining Tim, Cirque, and Vince, you know?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like even if like I'm saying that I don't consider him part of the core or like a core member because he doesn't influence the game too much, but he is a core member.
Someone you want to play with, like you say, yeah. People know this guy, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there was that element. He brought an element of experience, you know? Even if you're playing bad, you can still contribute to the team. And I think that's what he contributed, was this element of experience. He was good in very close situations. He was a good teammate, good person to have on your team. So yeah, I think when we cut him, it really hurt us, especially for who we got, you know, and that's like, it's no offense to Wiz at all. I think Wiz will be an amazing player with the right team, but it's just that we had two inexperienced players, and that is really, really tough. Like, as we already talked about earlier, like the transition from tier 2, or I mean, they were tier 2 NA, so that's even tougher, right?
Sure.
At tier 2 Europe maybe is easier to transition, but tier 2 NA, transitioning to tier 1, changing their lifestyle to this lifestyle on the road and boot camping all the time and having long days. That was too much to have, you know, that was too much to put onto two people. If we had just put it on JaCkz and we kept Cirque, or we brought in another experienced opper if we really had to remove Cirque, that would have helped so much more, in my opinion. And I think, we were top 21 at our peak or something. We probably could have made it to top 15 within a few months, and I think the story would have looked a lot different.
Was it the case that was there anything unusual about working with neaLaN? Because this is one of those ones where, like, I knew the name because he'd obviously been in majors and like in those Eastern European teams. But I remember when I heard he was joining ELEAGUE, it's like, what? Because people don't know this guy is from Kazakhstan. It's like, it's not like a traditional, like, obvious match. Like, oh, let's put him in an NA team. What was it like? Because obviously he's the in-game leader. If people don't know, what was it like to work with this guy? Was he different from past in-game leaders?
I think that he was like really open to learning. He was like really in tune with the meta at the time when it comes to like the small things, like how people do certain things in the game. But I think that he was a little bit disorganized and a little bit like he had room to grow pretty much. And that was fine because I felt like I could really help him. And so I think we had a pretty good working relationship when it came to that. Like he had a lot of good ideas and I was pretty good at organizing. And so I just tried to organize the idea in a way that was, in a way that we could use like every match. And on top of that, really good teammate, really wild player. Like when I say wild, he kind of reminds me a little bit about Nafany. If people know the way that Nafany would play, like
pretty aggressive,
very aggressive, very like just an entry IGL is kind of how I would describe him. So it was nice to play with him, but. And when I say that, you know, I remember in an interview I said like, you know, neaLaN might have came from tier 2 or something, but I can't feel it. Like it was a lot different playing with him than playing with a player like JaCkz. You know, JaCkz, I could tell like he was a tier 2 player at this time. neaLaN, you know, he was kind of in between tier 2, tier 1, and he had a lot of room to grow. He also had a really good attitude. So yeah, I mean, I think that he was just a young IGL at the time, and he needed more time to kind of make the team his.
Right. Again, obviously, he can only tell us so much behind the scenes stuff. So I'm going to ask more from your perspective on this question.
Okay.
Which is, people might forget that in all the haze of I know there's not really like a true off season in Counter-Strike, but in all the haze of the roster mania of what was going back and forth, I think a lot of people forget this one, dude. They forget the story that like ELEAGUE didn't actually just go from Team Liquid straight to Complexity and go, excellent, I can't wait to play for Complexity. I can tell you behind the scenes, guys, he turned down the Complexity offer. He was going to join EG and they were going to make this team, if you remember, that was this, again, it was going to be like a mix of Eastern European players with American players. So the proposed roster was, it was going to be you and ELEAGUE, NA players, JaCkz, the French player, would be there, and then there would be these two Russian players. There'd be zorte, the AWPer, and Electronic, and then potentially neaLaN could stay as agent. These were all players were all around in the mix at the time, and people heard like maybe some of these deals are close. Like, I would just ask you, if hypothetically this roster could have been put together, is this something you were interested in? Were you looking for? These are some big names, mate. Like, obviously people see what's happened to ELEAGUE since he got his game back. Electronic, people knows a monster. What were you thinking about this sort of a roster? This sounds like it could have been like a cool EG lineup, actually.
Yeah, 100%. Like, playing with Electronic would have been so sick because he is so good. Like, and as soon as I heard Electronic, I just thought like Flusha. I thought of, all the players in the past that have been really good and what this would do to my game, like what I could take from them, and so that's immediately what I thought of. And on top of that, he was like really selfless. Like, I remember we were asking him like, what spots do you want to play, and he was like, I don't care, like I'll play whatever. I remember we had a conversation like, who's gonna play Nuke on outside, because obviously that's my spot and that's his spot, and he said, I don't care.
He was gonna give you it,
whatever.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, he was like, I don't care. I had to question like, should I even be playing? Like,
hey, he probably should play it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I was like, no, I'm gonna play it. But yeah, like that's just to give you the vibe of like what kind of guy, he is, and so it was super cool, and so I was really excited about that. And but the one thing that I will say is that I didn't know the likelihood of this working out.
Right.
Like that's kind of the problem. And if it didn't work out, I would have preferred to go with the lineup that we had before, which was neaLaN, Breeze,
Junior,
Wiz,
wasn't it?
me, and Refresh.
Oh, Refresh, sorry.
That 5. Yeah, so, but it felt like, we went for this all-star roster. It fell flat, and then we went to the academy team. And I wish that instead we would have been able to build off of the previous few months that we had with that 5, with the previous 5, and just go from there, because, again, we weren't that bad. Like, I mean, I know it's like, in competition, you want to be the best. You don't want to be not that bad.
Sure.
But when you're starting off, you need a starting point, and you need to build from there if you want to be the best. You don't just become the best overnight. And so I just wish that we would have started there. I wish we would have picked up where we left off. But yeah, I mean, that didn't happen. We went for the all-star lineup, and then once that fell through, we had to go with the academy team for reasons that I won't say. And I was nothing against my former teammates on the academy team. Like, I've grown to love all of them. They're great guys. I was talking to them yesterday, all of them. And but I just wish that, the 4 months that we put into that roster of me, neaLaN, Refresh, Wiz, and Breeze, I wish that we could have built on that, is all. Because it's not like we're starting a team and I'm just putting in my 7 hours a day and calling it, I'm putting in literally like 10 to 12 hours every day trying to build this team. And then we just, oh, sorry, you have to start over again. And then it just is so annoying.
Right. Obviously, people will have seen just from your social media, there was this weird sort of there was a weird sort of period at the end of EG where it's like you're still under contract, so you have to sit there and it still says EG in the bio, but people know there's no lineups, there's no team to play with or thing to build in. At the time, people were kind of wondering maybe they're going to buy another team or make another team, maybe they do that again, or will they exit CS? Obviously, people might have known from other games, the rumours were they were leaving League of Legends and some of the other the big games, etc. Like, my question to you would just be, what do you do in an uncertain period like that? Did you really just sit there? Did you just kind of wait? Did you ever consider retire? Was that ever on your mind?
Well, retiring is not on my mind at all. Like, I feel like the whole reason why, like, I feel like all I want to do is compete. And to be honest, I don't really care what game I compete in, because like whatever game I compete in, I'm going to make it my game. Like, I'm going to put in a lot of time and like accept that challenge of learning a new game. So retiring is like completely out of the question. And I feel like right now I'm more equipped to win than I was when I actually won. You know what I mean? So that's something that I definitely don't want to do. But in terms of what I'm doing, I'm just grinding. Like, I'm just doing things that will help me, like, for my next project. So, like, to give you an example, during this time, I was playing a lot of aim trainers and, like, just working on my mechanics, playing Valorant. A lot of people hate when a CS player plays a different game. But the thing about playing Valorant that's really nice is that you play, like, pugging in Valorant, in my opinion, in NA is so much more enjoyable than pugging CS.
Okay.
And it's really nice because you play in this very unorganized environment that's completely different than Team CS. And you just have to always be on your toes and like making the best out of shitty situations, because you know you're not always going to be in a good situation in Valorant. And that's something that I struggled with towards the end of my CS career.
Oh, so it's to like train the mental, like fortitude,
Exactly.
sort of, right? I see.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, because, you know, in CS, the idea in Tier 1 CS is to always put yourself in good situations to where you can play well, you know?
Sure.
That's why most teams have a system, is because they know they can get into reliable situations that they're experienced in. When you play pugs, and this, like, I mentioned Valorant being more enjoyable because that's why I'm playing Valorant pugs instead of CS pugs. Like, you're always in kind of iffy situations, and you mentally have to always accept it and then just make the best out of it. And that's literally what I'm trying to do every time I play Valorant. And it's really hard. That's probably one of the reasons why I suck, is because instead of making the best out of the situation I'm in, I try to think about how do I get into a better situation. But so I'm just doing things like that during my off season that I hope will elevate my game, you know, because that's a skill that I think I can transfer onto a new team. Because on a new team, you're not always going to be in good situations.
Sure.
You're building out your system. And that's what I've done in every off season. Like, I think I've taken one off season throughout all my years of playing. Every off season, I'm normally working on something like that, you know. So yeah, that's what I was doing in my off season, was working, or during this period was just working on my mechanics, as well as, you know, working on these small things that people won't see. But
by the way, is there like a specific like figure that's like, are you like a Kobe fan on the Mamba mentality? So is there like a specific person that's giving you inspiration to grind like this?
I mean, I think that when I hear people like Kobe talk, and especially about their process and what they try to work on, I don't like. I think I was doing it before I heard that he was doing it. Like, it's just something that I feel like I've always tried to do in my career, because I mean, if people know anything about Kobe, people in the NBA will say he's very average. Like, height wise, he's 6'6". In terms of his strength, he's not that strong.
Sure.
You know, he's strong but not that strong. He's fast but not that fast. You know, you've probably heard people talk about him like that, and that is how I came up. You know, my aim was good, but it wasn't that good. It was just good enough to go pro. My reactions, same thing. My smarts in the game, or my game IQ was good, but, you know, there are people like Flusha and Stu who were better. And so I feel like I had to do it growing up in the scene because of what I had, you know, the cards that I was dealt. And so when I hear like what people say now, or the stories that come out about Kobe, I think like it's pretty, it reminds me a lot about my process. Obviously, Kobe's a 5-time championship, or 5-time, you know, He's won 5 times, and I haven't. I'm not saying that I'm
No,
Kobe
no,
or
sure.
anything like that, but you know, the approach is similar, I would say.
Yeah. By the way, one thing I think is key to make a note of here is, as you just said there, you're actually playing Valorant for fun. Because I think when people saw that first tweet that was sort of like, right, hey, I'm out of VG, by the way, I'm going to be playing Valorant, people were like, what the fuck? Does that mean he's going to Valorant? Like, is he announcing it? Like, at the moment, as of this moment that we're recording this interview, like, you don't know which way you're going to go. But in theory, you just open to both, right? It could be Valorant, could be CS2. Is that the logic?
Yeah, I mean, I know it's like that's not okay. Right now, I don't. Yeah, I just don't know what I want to compete in. But to be honest, it's about the people. Like, if there's a team in CS that has a people that I really want to work with, of course I'm gonna go there. You know what I mean? And it would make more sense because I'm obviously better at CS than I'm at Valorant at the current moment. So we could just start competing. If I join a Valorant team, I would need months to get better, you know, and they would need to have that faith in me to give me that time. And like that's not something that all VCT teams have, you know. VCT teams, they're making roster changes every season, and the seasons are like 8 months long. So yeah, I guess it's like kind of bad to say that I don't know what I'm going to compete in. But I mean, this is how I've been making my previous situations, and I don't regret it at all. But when the time comes to make a decision, I will just follow what I feel is right.
Is it the case that like is CS2 different enough from CSGO for you? Is it still just does it have the same appeal as CSGO to you?
I mean, okay, I'll be honest. Like that is one thing right now that is like weighing on my mind is that I do not enjoy playing CS2 that much. I like CS2 is like m0NESY, for instance. He's pugging CS2 every day. I saw a video of Nico saying like he can't do that. He can't bring himself to do that. I can't bring myself to do that in CS2. CSGO, I could probably do it, but CS2, I just don't enjoy the game right now for the way it feels. And you know, I played CSGO when it first came out, so I know like the argument is gonna need updates. But when CSGO came out, I left for a year, and then I came back when the game was better. You know, so yeah, I just don't really enjoy CS2 that much right now. But with that being said, playing a bad game but on a good team is always going to be fun. You know, like if I played CS2 and our team is grinding and we're working on getting better every day, we're coming on to practice with things that we want to do and you know situations we want to be in and all that sort of stuff that goes on a team, that would make that like it would just negate how unenjoyable CS2 is right now. You know, so I guess I'll kind of leave it at that.
What about, since you said earlier you had actually thought before Valorant of going to European team, would you be open to a move to Europe now?
Yeah, so Europe, I think that it would be, so I would be open to it, but I would need to join a team with a core. Like, I don't want to move to Europe and have so much instability around me.
Right.
Like, I don't want to move to Europe and start a project because, you know, if 6 months down the line, they cut the roster and then, yeah, like I just moved my life for this.
Yes.
So I would want, if I have instability in my life because I'm moving to Europe, I want stability in my team, you know, and whereas in NA, I would be more open to starting something new because, you know, I'm living at home. I have things stable here. So I feel like I could give my best to this new project.
I feel as though one thing people maybe might have a misconception about you is until they've listened to this interview and they've heard the reasons why you did certain things and why you stayed in certain teams or didn't take bigger offers, some people might worry like maybe you're just not super hungry in CS. Maybe you were just chilling, just playing. Are you driven to try, like you want to win a major in CS2? You want to be a top player again, guy?
I mean, 100%. And like the thing is that people forget how people actually win. You know what I mean? Like they think that just because I've won, I should have kept winning, but that's not how it works. Like, I mean, there are some teams that are really fortunate enough to have an era. Not every team has an era. There are great teams without eras.
Sure.
And but yeah, I mean, the point that I'm trying to make is that I'm in the process. Like, I wouldn't be doing all this if I didn't want to win. You know what I mean? Like, the reason why I'm doing this is because I want to win. But in order to win, you need to kind of be ready, you know. And every team who has an era, in my opinion, gets somewhat lucky. And, you know, the only way that luck actually, the only way you can really benefit from luck is if you're prepared. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, is I'm trying to prepare myself for the day that I can actually capitalize on the opportunities that I get.
At the end of this interview, do you have a final message? Do you want to say hello or thank you to anyone?
I mean, I don't think my parents are going to watch this interview, but I just want to say again that I really want to thank my parents. I want to thank all the people that, this is so different than what I would have said, you know, when I was younger, but I probably wouldn't have said anything when I was younger. But yeah, I want to thank all the people that I got to play with. Like, no matter the result, I really consider, I'm rooting for every single one of my teammates that I've ever played with, because they've all taught me something. And obviously want to thank Valens and EG. They gave me the opportunity to come back to CS. A lot of people will say, like, you know, it ruined my career, or, you know, that you know, it was a bad situation. But I mean, they gave me the opportunity to come back to this game and to learn and to get better. And, you know, I want to thank them for that. And I'm actually really grateful for it. So yeah, I mean, and then the fans, of course. I want to thank the fans for supporting me.
I've had to make a lot of tough choices in my career, but thanks to the support of my Patreon community, the Skrilluminati, I never have to make tough financial decisions. So this video and all the rest on my channel are kindly supported by Ahmed Haju, Frisky, Mac Pugnaccio Racula, Animosity, Jensen Gore, Tobias Bernasconi, Tosh, Toucan, and you know it if you've ever heard before, and you'll hear it many times in the future. A special thanks goes out to my main man, JaCkz Minion. Do you want to ask a question in my video AMA? Do you want to be part of one of those long discussions where we talk about whatever you like in esports? Do you want teasers, find out who the upcoming guests are going to be? Or maybe you want to suggest a topic for a future Thorin's Thoughts type video? Well, if any of these perks or others appeal to you, put your money where your mouth is today and join the Skrilluminati by joining the Patreon link in the description box below.